Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. I am Sariel, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 70, Shapur III. We get a new Shapur. Shapur I managed to crush 3 Roman emperors and bring his state to a new glory. Shapur II managed to kill 1 Roman emperor and reign for 70 years and restore peace and prosperity to his empire after a period of decline. What will Shapur III do? Sariel, what do you expect?
Something tells me, from your overall tone, that he might not be as great as the first and the second. But hey, prove me wrong, you know. I feel like if it were
I
3
didn't
times...
expect much of Shapur II.
Well,
Who knows?
yeah, but I mean, he was like... he hadn't been born when he was crowned. So
Fair.
This kid is like the nobles killed his, essentially, regent because he was continuing what Shapur II was doing without being Shapur II and being as scary as he was. And I don't know if this kid, you know... I mean, like, I was gonna say, like, this kid didn't grow up around his dad to learn, but, like, Shapur II hadn't been born, so, like, it was all...
no
that was
parental...
all, you know?
I mean, he had his mom, to be fair, but,
which might have been really influential, that's true.
We don't know, unfortunately, which is a shame, but...
Because who talks about the women in history? Unless they're, like, horrible murderers who, like, totally... plotted the demise of some king or some, you know.
Yes.
But
you need to get some good plotting in.
But yeah, so anything could happen. But I feel, so here's my silly theory. I feel like if it had happened 3 times, that you name a king Shapur, and they turn out to be the most incredible ruler, I feel like at this point, it would just become like a blessed name. And we would just get Shapur, like, throughout.
Yeah. You don't know. Maybe all the next king are Shapur IV through 17th, and then we're good.
You know, something tells me that might not be the case.
We'll see.
But hey, always happy to be surprised. I would love to know more.
Alright, so let's quickly recap what happened to Ardashir II, and then we can jump into Shapur III. So Ardashir II was we decided, nephew of Shapur II, and, well, he was caretaker king, meant to wait for Shapur III to come of age, and then give him the throne. Ardashir managed to sort of deal with Roman Armenia, get it a little bit more, that was helpful. The Armenian situation is still a bit unstable, but seemed to be gaining some ground there. In the east, the nomads were still ransacking the empire, but Ardashir kept them sort of at bay. And otherwise, he continued improving the empire, you know, helping out with irrigation and city building and all that. But in the end, unfortunately, he was deposed by the nobility, who said he wasn't going to give the throne to Shapur III. So they decided to depose him and put the young king in control instead. So that's where we are.
Yep.
So Shapur is... interesting.
Because
his age is kind of messy. Because everybody tells us he was the son of Shapur II. And since he was not yet an adult when his father died in 379, he was probably born sometime in the 60s. So that he was an early teen by the time Shapur II died.
Okay.
The problem is that this sort of messes up the timeline for Shapur III's son.
Huh. How come?
Because Shapur III had a son, you know, when he has a son, he would have had it when he was like 8 years old or something, to be still an heir. So there is some theory that, well, either Shapur's supposed son is actually his brother, and that's an option, or more interestingly, it's possible that Shapur III was an adult when his father died, but that the nobles insisted that Ardashir II become king because the situation was a little bit in crisis with the nomads in the east, and they thought, yes, Shapur III is an adult, but we need an older, more experienced man to be in control now, then you can be in charge afterwards. So that's a possibility. Shapur III's age is a bit strange for where we are.
Okay, interesting.
But anyway, as we saw, Ardashir II succeeded with a promise that Shapur III would gain the throne when he came of age. And as we saw last time, it looks like there was a faction in the nobility that preferred Shapur to Ardashir from the start, and maybe there was even a first failed coup before the big one. So in the end, we saw that Ardashir either was refusing to give up power to Shapur, or the nobles just decided that he had been on the throne for too long and it was time for somebody who was less antagonistic to take the throne. But Ardashir was deposed, and Shapur was made King of Kings at last. According to Al-Tabari, Ardashir made a show of submission to Shapur, and the new king treated him well for this, because, well, he's family and he'd taken care of the kingdom, and who knows, maybe he had actually tried to keep Shapur from the throne, but he hadn't killed him or anything, which you would respect at least, having not being killed.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And in his accession speech, Shapur declared to the assembled nobles that deceit, lies, greed, and self-righteousness would have no place in his court and empire. And I like that the nobles referred to him as, and I quote, new moon, image of such a brilliant moon, branch of such a majestic tree. Because, hey, he's the son of Shapur II. He can do no wrong. Clearly, with such an illustrious father, he will usher in.
He's absolutely perfect.
Incidentally, and I'm sure this had nothing to do with the nobles' opinion of him, the Islamic sources describe him as well-natured and well-disposed towards the nobles.
Sure.
Making sure to make friends with them all. We're told that he replaced a series of appointments of Ardashir and undid some of his acts, and rejudged some prominent cases for the nobles, where he was more lenient in their punishments or reduced them entirely. And the nobles tells us that after this, the empire was very well ruled. So, good, supposedly. The nobles are happy. Let's see how that translates to the real world, but here we are. Shapur would also follow up the old stone monument building, making one next to the one of Ardashir II, where it's interesting because if you remember, the monument of Ardashir II had the god of contracts, Mithra, next to him, which, according to some, was suggesting that Ardashir was referring to Mithra that, yes, he was going to give up power to Shapur, and that he would respect the deal. And interestingly, Shapur III places his own monument next to this one, showing himself next to his father, which might be either a way of superseding his uncle, saying, okay, look at that, that's the old regime, I'm here now. Or it could be sort of showing the god, Mithra, that the deal had been respected, and now Shapur was king, as was promised. So that could be interesting, who knows?
Yeah. Two very different interpretations.
Yeah, one is more aggressive, and one is more like, yes, you did a good job, and I respect you for it.
Yeah.
You can see, depending on how much you trust Ardashir, actually planned to give up the throne. But, Shapur clearly treated him well, so probably it wasn't too aggressive in the end.
Yeah.
And we also see some continuity with Ardashir II's iconography, because Shapur III also draws himself as a worthy successor of Ardashir I, and he still tries to maintain the union between state and church. But it's been a while since we've talked about foreign politics. What problems could there be in the West, Serial? Any guesses? Take a wild stab in the dark.
Is it the Romans again?
Close.
Is it...
Who is it if it's not the Romans? Yes, it is. Because we'd left Armenia in a bit of civil strife.
Did we?
Yes. So let's go back to Armenia and see what that looks like. It had been divided into an eastern and western part, each under a different king, but each king was claiming the whole kingdom, so it was a weird situation. It was sort of North Korea, South Korea situation, where they both claim everything, but is clearly divided. And yeah, as we saw last time, the Romans had a bit of a tough time. They'd lost their puppet king, and that was a bit of a mess. But now the Romans have returned under the Emperor Theodosius I to reclaim the whole vassal kingdom of the Roman part of Armenia. And this led to some fierce discussions with Shapur III, who was saying, okay, well, what are we doing with this Armenia situation? Do we just keep it split? Do we fight the Romans for it? Do we find a way to get the Romans to give it up? And if so, how? Do we just give up Armenia? It's not worth it? What are we doing? So, what do you think is a good solution for the Armenia question, Ariel?
Oh, God, I'm so done.
What do you think Shapur would go for? What would you do?
I'm so done. What is even, like... Okay, because last I heard it was under our control, and then we had another rebellion, because then, like, we helped them against the Romans.
Yes, we helped them rebel against the Romans, and then they rebelled against us.
Yeah, and then they were
again.
like, nah, actually, we want to be,
Yeah, and now the Romans have come back.
Yeah, because they're not going to be independent. Like, I'm sorry, that's just...
Yeah, exactly. And now the Romans have come back and have re-vassalized the rebel and made their own kingdom again.
Is it the same, like, ruler still?
No, they put in a new ruler because they don't trust the rebel. Which is fair enough.
Well, God, are we even gonna fight for Armenia? I mean, I guess it's like... It is beneficial to the empire. That's why we keep, like, ping-ponging it.
Mm-hmm. It's mostly because otherwise the Romans will get it.
It's out of spite.
Like, do we really want the Romans to have it? I was like,
I thought it was more because, like, it is strategic.
I mean, it is an important strategic borderland between the two, but also it's the idea that, I mean, yes, you could be nice and say, oh, no, Armenia, be independent, but then the Romans are
no, like, absolutely. I know that, yeah. But, like, do we care that much that the Romans have it? Does it give them such an advantage? Or is it just, at this point, just spite?
I assume hundreds of years of spite are also doing their job. So, essentially, what Shapur decides to do in the end is, what if we just split Armenia permanently?
The King Solomon decision.
Yeah, just cut it in two. Because there are some nobles now that are strongly Christian, and Rome is a Christian empire. There are some nobles that are more Mazdian. Why don't we just let the nobles choose who they want to go with and just break Armenia? How does that sound? And the Romans think, fair enough, we don't want to go to war over this.
Forever.
We're kind of dealing with a bunch of barbarian invasions in the west, so we're busy. Okay, let's break Armenia into two. Let's do that. So they split Armenia into two sides. The Romans take a smaller western region, which is a fifth of the kingdom, while Shapur would get to keep the largest part of the kingdom, the remaining 4/5, and control crucial crossings into the Roman Empire through the northern Caucasus, so they have safe passage in case they want to invade the Roman lands, and they can stop the Romans from invading Iran from that direction.
Yeah.
So, win-win. So we each get our own vassal king, but each vassal king understands their position, and it will be cool.
Okay. Do we, like, split the city literally? Like, make it into two cities? Or is it just, like, two rulers?
It's just two rulers, yeah.
Okay,
we're not doing a Western, Eastern Germany.
Yeah, that's an
like,
interesting
splitting Berlin, but yeah.
solution. Like, I like it more, because splitting a city in two artificially is kind of, But how's it going to work? Like, if one of them needs to favor one, the other needs to favor the other, like...
Well, what happens is that, essentially, all the nobles of Armenia are allowed... with
in
big air quotes, allowed to choose if they want to be on the Roman side or the Iranian side.
Okay.
And essentially they split up 1/5 versus 4/5.
We both call that a you puppy, and we'll see where the puppy goes.
Yes, pretty much.
Come here.
I'll give you treats.
No, we have better. We cuddled you more. You can do whatever you want with us. You can go to bed late. You can have ice cream.
Yes. And yeah, so it's split in half, and there's now a pro-Roman king and a pro-Iranian king. But it's also weird because you can't just split Armenia because the Armenian nobles are on either side. So Armenia is sort of this now semi-permeable membrane, where it's like the Armenian nobles can still interact with each other as they did before, but they're now under separate kings, which are under separate spheres of influence. So Armenia is split in half, but not really. So it's a very strange, mixed-up situation. Also, in exchange for the split, the Romans also grant Shapur control over the Caucasian kingdom of Iberia.
Okay.
Which is nice. Extra kingdom.
Iberia, the Iberian Peninsula?
No, Iberia and the Caucasus.
Yeah.
Iberia, the Iberian Peninsula is now, for the last time in a while, it is now under Roman control.
Yep.
But soon
it shall no
Visigoths and the Suebi will invade, and the Vandals and all those will take over. So for Armenia, in the end, the Roman king would be killed a few years later, and that part of the kingdom would be fully absorbed into the Roman Empire, while the Sassanid part of Armenia would remain in a semi-independent state for a few more decades. But, the thing is that now that Rome and the Sassanids have sort of come up with a peace that will last for a long while, Armenia has a much harder time playing them off each other. And so it will eventually be absorbed by the two because, well, they can't play them off each other. Their one advantage was running to the Romans when Iran was aggressive and running to Iran when the Romans were aggressive. Now they can't play that game anymore.
To be quite honest, I feel like the easiest way, or like the way in which like somehow, weirdly enough, peace would be achieved between the two empires and Armenia is that both kings would work for themselves. Both would put Armenia first and then the respective empires they're serving. So they would have an actual collaboration between them.
That would be nice, but then,
which is a selfish way to do it, right? Because
why does it not happen?
Yeah, it would be a selfish way to do it because they're putting themselves first and then the empires. But I feel like, weirdly enough, that might work, because at least they would have the city, as their priority.
Yeah, if they had their own kingdom as a priority, that would be nicer for Armenia, but unfortunately, when you're squished between two great powers, it's a tough time, as Poland knows.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so the West is stable. Great. We didn't even have to go to war. Love this for us. The problem is that there is now a conflict in the east because Shapur II didn't manage to finally deal with the nomads there. Because these nomads continue to attack, and it is not good.
Okay.
Also, incidentally, just because some listeners wrote in, and we appreciate their input, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
You remember I told you that these Kidarites in the east are also called the Red Huns?
Yes, because they were all
yes, and then
all
we have
colors.
Black Huns and all that. So yeah, there we are. Well, somebody wrote in to explain this to us, so thank you, listeners. Where the idea is that each color signifies a different direction in the steppe. So it's something that extends to the Turks and the Mongols, clearly with some cultural expansion, but still there. So the idea is that white, for example, is the western direction, so the Huns that attack Europe are called the White Huns, and the north is the Black Huns, the south are Blue Huns, and the east are Red Huns.
Okay.
So while these Huns are moving towards Europe, the eastern wing of them are these Red Huns, which are now at the east of the Sassanid Empire. So it's cool that they're all color-based. That's fun. I like that. The Mongol system is similar, but it will include yellow being the center or north. So it changes across millennia, as you would expect it to. But okay, so what's happening in the east at this point? Okay, well, first of all, we have some question of possible raids across the Caucasus, which now we have control of, into Mesopotamia. But if that was happening, it was relatively minor because we don't have much news. But in the east, the worst thing is that the Kidarites are raiding Sassanid lands. But not only that, they're capturing some crucial Silk Road cities. And it's during the reign of Shapur III that they capture Kabul, meaning that they push further into the empire and Shapur can do nothing to stop them, unfortunately. He's probably trying, but we hear of no great victories. He's just being continually pushed back and back. So that's not good. We then hear some grumbling from the inside of the empire, because the nobles are unhappy with Shapur, as they would be, because they're nobles.
Yeah, because that's what they do.
Yeah. We're not sure why they're unhappy. We have 3 options.
The day you tell me that the nobles are actually happy about a monarch, I'm gonna be like, what?
What has happened?
The world is upside down.
Yeah. I don't think we will reach that moment, Sarah.
Yeah, no, I figured.
Never. I've researched all but the last 5 kings. It hasn't happened yet.
Yep, as expected.
So there are 3 possible reasons why the nobles could be angry with the Shapur. Option 1 is that maybe the nobles were unhappy with how Shapur was dealing with the nomadic threat. Shapur wasn't doing a good job, the nomads weren't being stopped, and the nobles needed somebody to stop them. Especially the nobles that had lands in the east and didn't want them raided or conquered. Option 1. Option 2 is that there are some nobles that wanted all of Armenia and thought that giving the Romans part of Armenia was basically losing and looking weak, and they actually wanted all of it, so they disagreed with Shapur's policy there. Third option is that the speech of Shapur saying that justice will reign was a sign of him pursuing an anti-corruption stance. And the corrupt nobles thought, hey, no, wait, I hate this.
Wait, no,
please give
we
us
like
corruption.
Ah.
Yes. So,
turns out,
whichever way, it looks mostly that not all nobles were angry at Shapur, but only some of them. So since not all nobles were angry at him, they couldn't depose him like they did his uncle / cousin / possible brother. Who knows? But they had to go to do something more sneaky. Sneaky things. Because one day, the royal court decided to all go together on a hunting trip. What do you think happens to Shapur on this hunting trip?
Yeah, of course. What happens in hunting trips? The king doesn't come back.
Well, he doesn't come back in a very interesting way.
Oh?
Because Shapur, you'd expect him to go off into the forest with a few retainers and they say, oh no, it was a stray arrow. Oh my goodness, the humanity, what happened? But no. They actually go hunting and everything goes well, and they return home for a... I mean, they return to camp for a lovely feast.
I did not expect this. We've heard this before. It's been like at least one other king that was killed this way. Probably more? I don't remember. But yeah, so what happened? Wait.
Well, they all go back to camp and they set up their tents and they get ready for a feast to eat what they've hunted probably, and, enjoy some epic tales told by a skilled bard. Then night falls, everybody's happy and full, and they go to sleep in their respective tents. But during the night, somebody went to Shapur's tent and cut the supports that were holding it up. So the whole thing came tumbling down on Shapur, who ended up crushed or suffocated by his own tent.
Wait. I mean, I know this is not tent. I know this is not like, a 2-people tent, but like, how big was this? To kill a man. But, like, still, I guess nobody was guarding this freaking support, but odd way to, what do you mean? Killed by tent, what?
It was probably just like a massive royal tent with a bunch of decorations and trophies and, if it's a tent the size of a palace, I can imagine that would crush you. So, there he is. And one of our historians, Al-Talibi, makes sure to tell us that Shapur's skull was crushed and spilled his brains.
Damn.
But according to him, it was actually just an accident and it was a storm and his tent just fell. And the nobles were totally innocent, you guys, I promise.
Of course.
Because he says that some say that the king was becoming evil and God had spared the kingdom with this act. So, who knows?
So, like, it was totally an accident, but also we hated the guy, so God,
Yeah, so it was an accident, but he deserved it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that instead of deposing Shapur, like they did with Ardashir, the nobles decide to try and murder him. Which probably means that Ardashir had barely any noble support, so all of them managed to agree to just oppose him, while Shapur had sort of split the nobility, with one faction deciding to take matters into their own hands to replace him that way. But yeah, so he is dead, and the nobles would then choose Shapur's son, Bahram IV, to succeed his father in this most dangerous profession. So what are your thoughts about Shapur III, Serial? Unfortunately, not as impressive as his namesakes.
About what I expected.
It happens.
At least he was still pissing off the nobles.
Yeah,
Not that interesting,
to keep up
though.
Traditions.
Because,
No, there could be better things.
How old was he? Like,
was
relatively young, I imagine.
Again, his age is mysterious because he has a son which is an adult now, and 5 years ago,
Yeah, this does not add up.
like 9 years ago, he wasn't qualified as an adult, but his son now is an adult.
Yeah.
So,
No.
it's messy. It's also possible that Bahram IV is just his brother. Which
Maybe.
is an option. We don't know.
There's something weird.
But yeah, Shapur III at this point was probably in his 20s, mid-20s at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, quite young, but alas, crushed by tent. Okay, so are you ready to rate him, Serial?
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Let's go. Our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death? Crushed by tent.
Very. Like,
that was
damn.
fun. You don't often get kings crushed by tents. It's also funny because it's just like he was going into a hunt and you expect him to be murdered on the hunt, and then he comes back.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back, he has a feast, and it's like, aha, maybe it's the feast, he'll be poisoned. It's like, nope, it's fine.
It's all good.
And then he goes to sleep, and then the tent falls on him. It's like, huh. Didn't
Weird.
expect that?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Like, of all the things that could have happened, and I wonder why they didn't do the other things. Like, that's quite interesting.
I guess I don't know.
What? It's what?
It might be easier to cut the tent supports. Like,
I mean, maybe?
I feel like he would be less surrounded by guards. Maybe that could be it. But yeah, it is a bizarre situation. So what would you rate that? How much do you think it's worth?
Plenty, actually. I don't know, like an 8?
An 8?
Because you have like several moments of like, yes, oh no, oh now, oh no, oh what? What happened?
I think I might go for a 7 because there isn't that personal element of betrayal.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which I'm looking for in a good death.
And nothing is going to top Alexander's death. So
Alexander's pretty hardcore. But yeah.
It still haunts me.
I mean, Bardia was also fun.
Yeah, because it's like yes, but no. Like, is he or isn't he? Is he a zombie? Is this a weekend at Bernie's kind of, Yeah.
Or Sogdian's put in the ash room by his half sister. That's pretty cool.
Well, yeah,
too.
that was very
That was
intense.
fun. So I think it's good, but it could be better.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a 7.
You've
matching my 7?
convinced me. I think a 7 is more adequate.
Okay, fair enough. So with a 7 and a 7, we get a 7 out of 10 for final moments. Our next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting? Well, in the West, he doesn't really fight. He just makes a deal with the Romans and says, hey, we fought a lot. Let's just be nice to each other. Let's just split Armenia. That'll be fine. It's a nice deal. In the East, unfortunately, Shapur isn't doing too well. He's sort of holding back the Kidarites, but they do manage to conquer Kabul and take several other Silk Road cities and just raid that section of the empire, which is not great. So, it's not collapsing in the East. It's not complete defeats, but could be a lot better. So, yeah, that's all we really have for his battle hardness.
Yeah, not much
what
was happening.
What do you think that's worth? Not too much was happening, It was relatively peaceful as long as you weren't in the East, and in that case, it wasn't going too well. I'm thinking maybe just like a token 1 because the Kidarites aren't like fully breaking through. They're just breaking through a little bit. It's not a catastrophic defeat. It's just small, steady failure. But I don't think any more than that. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I have nothing to add. I'm like, yep.
Fair enough. So with a 1 and a 1, we get a 2 out of 20 for battle hardness. Our next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations? Nothing real. I mean, The one thing you could put in there, if you want to, is deciding to split Armenia instead of fighting over it. I don't know if you want to consider that just good statesmanship rather than a scheme.
That's not a schemy thing. It's not like a plot.
Yeah, it's not an underhanded thing. It's just saying, hey, let's not fight. Okay, cool. That's a good idea. So yeah, scheminess, I think I'm going to go for a 0. There's nothing much I can think of.
Yeah.
Okay. So with a 0 and a 0, he gets a 0 out of 20 for scheminess.
Scheminess on the side of the nobles.
Yeah. He suffers from scheming.
Yeah.
Alright, next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? Is it shocking that he doesn't go to war? Yeah.
Because we don't really have the timeline very clear, and I'm a bit like, who is he?
Yeah, the confusion is like, who exactly is his father and his brother and his son, and who are his relatives exactly? But otherwise, Is he the first murdered Sassanid king? No. Can't be.
Is he?
I'm trying to think. No, Adurnarse was definitely murdered. Yes. Adurnarse and Hormizd II, yes. This recent family around Shapur II has pretty consistently been murdered.
Yeah.
So, no, that's not even that shocking for him, so I'd say another 0. There's just not much to speak of, I assume.
Yeah.
I'm going for a 0, and if you're matching,
it's
a 0 and a 0 is a 0 out of 20 for shock factor. Our next category is Aaron Shine. How good was he for the Empire in general and Iran in particular? We're told he ruled well and justly, but we're then told he's killed by the nobles. So, how well was he actually ruling? And also, internally, we're told he ruled well, but then he got murdered because he was turning bad, is one version of the story. Or because he was trying to stop corruption, which might be another version. But again, maybe he was trying to be his dad, but with none of the skills. So, who knows? While externally, he manages to secure the division of Armenia, so that's nice. We managed to say, okay, Romans, you keep your side, we keep our side. That's it. We don't have to fight over it anymore. We're done. So that's nice. It's good that we have an understanding with the Romans. That's helping us. And reduces chances for further war. The problem in the east is that we're losing territory to the Kidarites, and the east is just being raided, so trade is going to be disrupted. So it's generally an uncomfortable time. I am floating between a 3 and a 4. Because the Empire is not doing better than it was before, it's doing worse.
Yeah.
It's not doing so much worse. Because, it has improved because of the Armenia thing. We've now settled with the Romans what Armenia is going to look like for the next while. But the Eastern situation is pretty messy, and the internal situation with the nobles isn't good. So, I'm mostly wondering, is Armenia important enough to counterbalance one of those two downsides, or is it not enough? What do you think?
I would go for... Well, we're not in ruins, right? But
no, the Empire's still standing.
I think we'd go for...
Still doing reasonably well, but...
I was going for 3, but maybe a 4. Because the Armenia thing is good. And that's where most of our issues, Well, it's not that most of our issues come from there, but, they're always an issue. So...
Yeah. It's the trigger point for most wars with Rome, and we've decided to come up with a solution for it.
Exactly.
That's nice. That's positive direction. Actually, yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm going to go with a 4, because setting in stone what Armenia's meant to be like is good enough. And also, we gained the Kingdom of Iberia, which is good. That's helpful. We didn't mention that. So I think a 4 is there, where it's it's getting worse, but you did a reasonably good job overall. So are you matching as well?
Yep.
So with a 4 and a 4, we get 8 out of 20 for Aaron Shine. Our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this man looked like?
Well, give me a moment.
I will send you his crown, which is quite a cool crown. I enjoy it. It's a nice, because it's minimalistic, but it has a vibe. It's a crown. It's definitely not minimalistic, but you know what I mean.
Minimalistic is a crown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little...
Yeah, just a little something I threw on.
It's more complicated than we've had this far, so I don't know what you mean.
I don't know. I feel like it has a simpler silhouette. That's all
the details.
Reasoning. Okay, so Cyril has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and I will describe it to you all. Fair. So what we have here...
Yeah, sorry.
We have two big masts of wood crossed over each other and the fabric of a large, heavy tent. And from this tent is being pushed through a hand trying to find air, as our poor boy Shapur III is shown giving up a tiny little ghost because, alas, this tent is too heavy and he should have probably planned better for this. So our poor boy Shapur III is now ignominiously gone, like so. So yeah, thank you, Cyril. If any of you would like to see this drawing, then you can go on our Discord, if you are a patron, or you can go to the episode notes down below, or go to our website in Cyril's portrait gallery. Now let me show Cyril what he actually looked like, and this is a plate, which, we're following. This is the new silver plate style.
Ooh, oh, I love these. Is he
These are nice.
Stabbing a leopard?
Yes, he is. And the cool thing is that leopards represent chaos, and he is the king, killing chaos and restoring order.
Oh.
So, allegory. It's sort of like a king showing himself as St. George slaying the dragon. It is that vibe.
Nice. I really like it. Yeah, it has a fair bit of relief too. So I assume this is decorative. You can see all the details on the clothes and the pants, because it's represented full body. So you have the entire armor and the billowing diadem and other the belt tassels behind him. And
I also like how billowing the pant legs are.
Yeah,
that's very good.
It's so cool,
flowing in the wind. And I like how the leopard has a bunch of spots and they're all nice and defined.
Yeah, very pretty. And the crown is fun.
Yeah, crown is a good crown. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, I like this. I like this new style of art. It's still stylized, but more detailed than before.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll go for a 7.
7,
I like
yeah, you
it.
know what? I agree. I think a 7 is good. It's not outstanding, but it is a fun...
Yeah, it may not be my favorite thing ever, but it is really pretty. So
we've seen better ones, but it's pretty good. Okay, so with a 7 and a 7, he gets a 3.5 out of 5 for Face of Faces. Our next category is lengthiness. How long do you think he ruled for?
I am still so confused about the timeline. I'm going to say 5 years.
5 years is exactly it. He reigned from 383 to 388 for a grand total of 5 years. Divide that by 10, gives us a 0.5 out of 5 for lengthiness. And that brings us to the final score, which is a grand total of 21 out of 100, placing him exactly in the same place as Seleucus IV.
Huh.
And that sandwiches him between Vonones I and Sogdianus. So, in the not terribly successful kings section.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have that
in
much
the
time.
Things aren't going too well, but they're not getting too much worse kings section. So, fair enough. Nothing wonderful, nothing terrible. Without infamy and without praise. So that takes us to the final question, which is to say, is he leopard killing enough? Is he squished enough? Is he questionably familiar enough to be a Shahanshah? Or is he just a Shahanah?
No, this wasn't that.
Yeah, no, there wasn't.
Impressive.
Yeah. The most impressive thing is that he's squished by a tent. That's the one thing I remember about him. Everything else is it's baby steps, but I would lump him in a chapter with Ardashir II and say, some stuff happened to Armenia. 2 kings were deposed or killed.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens next. We can see if Bahram IV is any good. We can see if he's a more brilliant lad. So, okay, that is the end of our episode. We hope you had a good time, and we hope you'll join us next time for Bahram IV. In the meantime, if you'd like to support us, there are several ways to do that. You can join our Patreon, like several people who have joined recently. They are called Okay, I've finally become a patron.
We love that.
Stephen Trevick and Anna Matsuba. So thank you all for joining. We really appreciate it. And if anybody else wants to join, you get access to a bunch of extra episodes. We've finally finished voting for a new series. It's going to be a series on religious travelers. We'll have the story of Dionysus in India. So we'll see, why is Dionysus associated with Hellenistic kingship, and why is he associated with travel and the East? That will be interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing St. Thomas the Apostle and his travels to India as well, evangelizing Christianity in the 1st century. So that's going to be interesting. He goes through a lot of Parthian lands. That's cool. And then finally, there's going to be the false prophet Alexander, who is going to be a strange religious figure in the 2nd century who ended up provoking a Roman invasion of Armenia through his prophecies, which ultimately failed. So we'll see what it's like. He also created the god that Alan Moore worships, supposedly. So there we go. That's a thing to learn. If instead you'd rather not support us monetarily, that's fine, but we'd appreciate if you could give us a review on your podcast app of choice. Doesn't have to be anything big. It could just be a rating or a small comment saying, I like this podcast. If you would write something longer, that's cool too, but there is no necessity for it. So yeah, in that case, without any further ado, we hope you have a lovely week, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.